Welcome back to the library, Wanderer. No spotlight this week, so you head over to Wing 1, the Hidden Nest, over to King Shash's shelf. There you pick up the first book you can find. This one is all dark except for two eye-like bright yellow spots. The Eyes in the Dark. Peter looked forward into the darkness of the city. It was peaceful. The stars were out, and he could hear the gentle hum of cicadas and grasshoppers ringing out into the night. He could only see silhouettes of the buildings, as the crescent moon hardly illuminated anything within his surroundings. He made his way down the desolate road, avoiding the major potholes and dancing around the fissures, his mind vaguely remembering that stepping on a crack would break his mother's back. He chuckled to himself at this silly thought, though despite knowing it wasn't true, he continued to avoid the crevices. Finally, entering the city, he took a moment to observe the surroundings. Off to the left looked to be a corner store. To the right is what appeared to be an office building. He briefly considered what to do, before deciding to go to the corner store. It probably had some decent loot, at least compared to the office building. Peter crossed the street and headed onto the sidewalk, his shoes crunching broken glass as he observed the building. It was dilapidated, half of the eastern wall being caved in, the western wall being covered in graffiti marks. He could barely make out several squares in the darkness. The front was blown out, glass barely hanging onto the panes it once resided in. The automatic doors were wrenched open, the left one on the ground, with sharp shards of metal showing where it had been torn from. He stepped over the door, heading inside and looking around. Several shelves were knocked over, others damaged in various ways. The checkout area was staffed by a singular skeleton, bones picked clean long ago. The shirt it was wearing had a name tag on it, reading, "Hello, my name is Oliver." The skeleton was sitting in a seat hunched over the counter, skull resting on the glass that showed off the cigarette packs below in the locked area. Not that the locks mattered, seeing as the glass in the front of the counter was smashed. Peter leaned down and picked up one of the shelves, pulling it up and setting it back where it was supposed to be. He looked down at the ground, seeing several candy bars left behind. He grabbed them, stuffing them into his large frame backpack. He then stood back up, eyeing the fridges. Everything in there was probably bad, and he didn't feel like opening them to smell the stink of rotten decay. He moved to the counter where the skeleton was, kneeling down and knocking a few shards of glass away. He reached inside the case, grabbing the cigarette packs that remained. He could get good trade value out of these. Grabbing the lighters that were left behind, he sent them into his backpack. He was satisfied with this. As he began to head towards the door, he could hear something move. Panic flooded his system, and he quickly turned around to see what it was. The skeleton was shifting, slowly beginning to sit up and flex its finger bones. The sound was nauseating, the sound of scraping bones and grinding teeth. He could see it turn its head to look at him. "You gonna pay for that?" The skeleton asked, its voice a deep, croaky groan, its lower jaw moving in time with how one would speak. Despite not having a tongue or vocal cords, it somehow spoke. Peter let out a sigh of solace as he heard this. Despite the scene being horrifying to most people before the apocalypse, this was just a standard reanimation. "No, I'll come back later and help clean up the store, though," Peter said. Lying through his teeth, he had no plans on coming back. "The store could use some TLC, which I could give." The skeleton seemed to ponder this for a moment, taking a look around at the store before looking back at Peter. It nodded slightly. "Fair enough. Have a good day." The skeleton then laid back down in the same position it had been in prior to reanimating. Peter let out a sigh of relief, stepping outside into the cold winter air once again. Just one more building. Gotta get something good for the traders, just one more building. He mused to himself as he tried to think. What good stuff could an office building have? Coffee machine? Coffee machines were good. Maybe even some money. USD was still used at some of the trader camps. He made his way to the street and entered into the office building. There were no corpses this time, although the office seemed to be in much better condition. No cracks, rubble, or debris. The only noticeable signs of the apocalypse or distress was a large blood pool on the green carpet, which streaked to the door that was closed. Peter made a mental note to avoid that room. He walked further inside, heading to the offices, climbing stairs to get there. The power was out, and thus the elevator wouldn't work. He grabbed a few empty mugs from the break room, along with the coffee machine. People who had power would kill for that. As he grabbed the coffee bags, a loud, thunderous groan rang out from outside. The building began to shake. He paused what he was doing, eyeing the window in the break room, looking to see what was causing the noise. As he watched, he could see bright white lights peer down through the alleyway. "What the hell?" he mumbled. Cars couldn't make that noise, nor were their headlights that bright. Entity. It had to be an entity, and God did it sound pissed. He stuffed the coffee bags into his backpack and quickly moved away from the window. He crouched down behind the wall as the light flooded into the office room. The noise continued, battering the office like waves against a beach. He could feel the building rock as the noise grew louder. The light moved as if peering into the room, looking for something. He stilled his breath, getting down on his stomach and crawling towards the stairwell. He just had to get out and he would be fine. The lights moved away, bathing the office room in darkness again. He let out a sigh of relief and stood up, making his way to the stairwell. He stood inside it after opening the door, slowly shutting it behind him with a quiet click. Peter propped himself up on the railing, sliding down as the building began to shake again. The lights creeped in through small cracks in the foundation. He wasn't worried about it seeing him, though. The cracks were far too small. He slid further and further down, finally stopping at the bottom. He opened the door and stepped into the main room, cursing silently as he remembered the amount of windows there were. He got down on his stomach and began crawling again, keeping his head down. As he made it to the door, he paused, waiting for a moment. It didn't come. He assumed the entity moved on, standing up and heading outside, looking around with apprehension. No movement, no noise, no lights. He decided that was enough looting for the night. A close call, and he didn't want to risk it further. He made his way down the sidewalk, heading back down the road towards his cabin in the woods. He needed sleep. Hopefully this is not an end that you're moving towards. Then again, it's better than some that you've seen. Oh well, you pick up the next book. This one smells of gunpowder and sweat. Price check on a darling duelist. Darling! I blink, eyes still hazed and head still pounding from the previous night. There are shapes moving around in front of me, but nothing terribly interesting seizes my attention. Rolling over, I sweep my blanket past my shoulder, wipe some dried chunks off my chin. A hand violently shakes my shoulder. I slap it away, grunting. I say something like, "Don't bother me none, baby. Don't do that." An angry voice begins shouting, but before I can listen, a hard leather mass lodges itself in my spine. I leap up, scrambling away from the dull and already fading pain. I yank my boxers from around my ankles and leap up ahead. I see two smears shimmering in what I know is my room. One's a black, the other a yellow one. The black one, who's a lot bigger than me or her, or both, grabs me, and the voice begins shouting again. I feel his breath on my nose. It stinks. As he violently shakes my body, I can't help but wonder what might have caused me to end up in this predicament. The words contract and money drift around my brain. That seems to line up with what he's shouting about. I try to listen. Obligated by your pact with the Wholesome Proplanetary, which you signed in blood, might I remind you? I tune him out and check my hand. There's definitely a new prick mark there. I don't do anything through the index finger, so it's probably got something to do with extraterrestrials or some other species capable of reading index cards. Those happened from time to time. I decided to listen in again, see if I can't catch the details. Hours late, and your presence is required. As the second in the duel, Mr. Scott Darling, your lead has made himself unavailable. You're up. Oh, shit. A bundle is shoved into my arms while a new order to get dressed is barked out. Standing half-heartedly, I stagger into the dirty pair of battle garments. A tricorn is squished into my head, and before I can say Bob's your uncle, I'm out the door. The gloomy sun, dim as it is, still shines brightly enough to irritate me. I take a few steps before stumbling into a fence post and vomiting again. Blorg, where do they find these sapsuckers? Asked a feminine voice as a hand yanks me back to my feet. I blink a few more times and start getting a clearer picture. The black smear is a man in black, wearing a ceremonial dueling robe. The yellow smear, a woman, wore a blouse and a rarity, makeup. My thoughts are interrupted as I'm stuffed into a back seat. As soon as I'm in, we have taken off, canoeing in a direction I can't quite make out from the vantage point of being jammed into the floor. From how many bumps we're running into, though, we can't be headed for a good part of the Ville. Finally, after what feels like minutes, yet another hand grabs and yanks me back into the limelight. I can see now, finally. We're out in a big green field, with daffodils merrily dancing in the breeze. Around us, pine trees bristle in the wind. A pistol is slapped into my hand, and I'm given a final shove to glory. I suddenly notice the duel master standing between me and a rather sickly-looking gentleman, holding a pistol that could match the one I'm holding. Wait, why am I holding a pistol again? I look around, trying to get a sense of it all. I've ruled out still being asleep or hallucinating. I call out, Hey, what the fuck is going on here? The duel master looks up from his scroll, frowning loudly. Hey, buddy, don't interrupt me. I'm trying to get this spiel done with. Don't worry, it'll all be over soon. Just take 10 steps, shoot, and we can all go home. I shrug, try and fail to lift the pistol to my side, and spin to begin pacing. 1, 2, 3. I ponder the possibility of running, and decide that maybe dying in a duel is definitely better than going to court and getting a sentence. I shuddered at the thought. 4, 5, 6. I remember to cock the pistol, and pray that the gunpowder can't get wet from hand sweat. 7, 8, 9. I make peace with the gods of any religions I can remember, and the devil too. Might as well play it from both ends. 10. I turn, eyes jammed shut, and fire. Blam! I opened my eyes and saw the sickly man groaning on the ground, covered in blood and shit and tears. I looked down at my smoking gun, and then back to the entourage. I'd hoped for maybe shock, but instead they seemed more apathetic than anything else. Well, said the woman, stretching. Second killed the second. Nothing of value lost. Let's clean up and head out. Cadbury's got an appointment at noon. The duel master checked his scroll. Cadbury's second is out. You could use this little darling again, though. They all looked at me, to each other, and nodded, before beginning another advance towards me. I holding on to my wallet and gulp audibly. Do not sign contracts that you will not remember. You must always find a way to pay back what you owe. And if you don't, someone else will. Ah well. The next. Smells of salt air. It comes from the ocean. Let's see what this is about. A flock, you're almost positive that's the right word, of fish has invited you to attend their concert tonight. Sounds cool, you think, but they warn you. It'll be exactly 30 minutes of noise music. A genre of music known for being highly listenable and having wide appeal. And also, there's no seating because it's in the middle of the ocean. Do you accept the invitation? No? But thou must. Yes. I will here leave a link in the description so that you can see it. Remember to check into deeper. After listening, the sample list, the fish say, is on Bandcamp. You ask the fish how they have a Bandcamp account, and they quickly change the subject. They ask you what you think of the music, and you say with absolute certainty, it sure is audio. Then the fish offer you some ketamine, and the rest of the night is a blur. You wake up the next morning, soaking wet, but unharmed. Well, that certainly was noise. That is something I can agree with the writer on for that one. Oh well. The next book smells of sand, age, and it's definitely dangerous. The old man was bald, and his skin was leathery. He had a short fire plug of a body, with disproportionately large gnarled hands. His eyes were dark and glittering. His dark skin had a waxy sheen in the harsh light of the sun.
I'm Grandfather Scorpion,
he told me.
I am old. I was the first on land. When the others crawled ashore, I was there waiting for them. I was the death of snapping claws and flashing sting. Once, when the world was younger and all the people spoke, I needed to cross the sea. The water was deep and hateful to me. I was the first of her children to leave, and the sea has never forgiven me that. A turtle passed by, and I asked for a ride on its shell. It refused, saying that I would sting it, and it would die. Later, a bird flew overhead. I asked for it to fly me to the other side. It refused as well, saying I would tear it apart with my claws. I was stronger than you understand, and larger, too. Finally, a fox passed by. I asked if it would carry me across the sea. It refused at first, but I promised that I would not harm it. It agreed out of pity, and I climbed atop its head. When we were halfway across, I stung the fox, and we both began to sink. Why? Asked the fox. Now we both will die. I shrugged. I am Grandfather Scorpion. It is in my nature, and so I drowned in the sea.
The old man sipped his tea.
But I am the old Sting, and I have died many times, and I always live again. I will live and die long after man has quit this earth. I was the first out of the water. I am the oldest. I am Grandfather Scorpion.
While you may be able to fight your nature, and others too can fight theirs, never trust that someone will or can. Not when it will matter most. Ah well, the next one is a short poem. Its cover appears to move and shift, like clouds across the moon. Hush. Mirrors shine within the moon, wreathed by wisps of darkened mists. Scratched and scarred by shreds of clouds, shadowed solitude persists. Softly treading, stealthily sheer, this fantasy drifts and soars. One who stops to see this sight recalls no tears, no nevermores. Rooted fast by vision's dance, long-lost vows and promises, whispers of self-same peace it preys on where wishes live. Souls who seek this sky-born lie sleep in stone devoid of light. Someday soon they'll cease to stand, shattered in the dead of night. Desire drives their gaze to stay, enshrouded in their endless flight. It is not worth the price they pay, these poor souls seeking respite. So search the skies and turn away, until the false promise is past. Should you be sorely tempted yet, remember this, dreams never last. Recovered from the sands of the Mojave Desert. Alright, and that's all we have time for today, Wanderer. I have people to meet, and you have places to see. And neither of us truly wants to, so thank you very much for coming, and good luck out there. It's been an honor having you.